Record on this computer. All right. All right. So today's class, I'm trying to do something different. Instead of, I'm gonna just do one example of the code, and then I'm gonna go to the instructions interactively fairly quickly, because what I wanna do at the end is gonna show you how we can put the things that we learned together to do something useful. Because again, it's a DFIR study group, right? So if there's no DFIR, then what's the point? For the folks that are watching this not live, I weren't part of the previous conversation, I have my mask on because I'm at the office today to do some work. So I had to come in. So here I am with my mask. So, all right. So let's open our editor. I think I have it already open here. All right, everybody can see that, right? And let's run the vowels.py script, right? So if you're on a Mac, function F5, and there you are. We discussed this last time, where we have our list with our vowels. We have our word that has a collection of letters, a string, collection of characters. And then our for loop is gonna go and extracting each item from word and then checking if it's in, that's why this word is so descriptive, I love it, if it's in our list, right? And as you can see here, the output, we have I is 2 times, right? And the A is 1 time. And notice how it's going from left to right as it's examining the thing, all right? Perfect. So we kind of get that. Based on that foundation, the chapter, this first half of the chapter, then starts building different methods on top of it of how can we manipulate this list that are useful, all right? So I'm gonna do a couple here. Let's start with, I'm gonna use word because why not? It's a variable name, we discussed that already. And let's use, I use this word, whose, just assign the string. And if we output what's inside the variable, there's our string. Notice how I used double quotations to indicate the string. And I use the single quote here in the middle. And the reason for that is, if you're using single quotations and you wanna make them part of your string, you have to then double quotation on the outside, or vice versa. I could have used a double quotation on the inside, which would make no sense, right? As a string, as a sentence, but bear with me. And then if you're using double quotation on the inside, then to kind of enclose all of it, you need the single quotation on the outside. So just keep that in mind. So to make sure that we use this properly, because remember, single quotation and double quotations can be used to indicate a string, okay? There's no convention, like, not convention, let me rephrase that. There's no rule that you have to use double quotations for a string or a single quotation. There isn't, but usually I like single quotations a lot, except when I'm doing something like this. All right. So now, we learned in the chapter a little bit later on, we're gonna turn this string into a list. So we're gonna use this list functionality here and take our variable and make sure we make it into a list and then assign it to itself. And so did that make sense? So I'm taking the variable word, I'm gonna take its own contents, I'm gonna make it a list. That's how it works, right? We're going from the left, from the right, assigning that after it's completed to the left, all right? And you can see here all the items all the characters as a list. Perfect. So to summarize what we learned, so let's say we need to take out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we want to take out the last entry of the list that we're in, right? So we learned that we can use this method called pop, right? And if we put no parameters, no arguments in it, nothing in it, it will take out the last entry of that list. You see word pop, and see it says S because it took the S out. And how do I confirm that? Word, there's no S, okay? If we wanted to add that S back to it, we learned the append method, and we're gonna put it back, right? And let's confirm. And there it is back, right? We can use pop again, and we can use also by index. And notice, if you notice what I did here, this for, it indicates the position of the character I'm gonna pull out, or the values I'm gonna put out from the list. And as we discussed a couple of classes ago, we start at 0. So this W is position in the array or the list 0. position 1, position 2, position 3, which is the single quotation there, and the S is 4. So we're taking 4 out, it brings it out. Confirming, and there you go. So you can pop by itself, the last entry, or you can pop a specific point or location within that array, within that list. Okay, so what happens if we try to pop something beyond our index, right? Up from 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Our last entry is position 3. What happens if we try to pop 4? We get an error, index out of range. And this is something that you need to get used to, at least when you see that, index out of range. Oh, okay, I'm trying to address some data that's outside of my list. My list is not as long, or it's not as short, or whatever it is. And I like to show errors, so that way when you see them, you don't freak out, and you have an idea of what's going on. Okay. Right, so we also learned to use remove. The cool thing about remove is that instead of by position, you can actually remove a specific entry in that what's it called, list, right? So I'm gonna take out that single quotation part, or apostrophe is the word. Well, just take the single one out, and we hit word, it's out. So it's not remove. It doesn't use the position of the index in the array, in the list. What it does is it specifically you select, okay, I want this value to come out of it, and it removes it. So pretty convenient, okay? We also learned to extend. And the cool thing about extend is that you can take another list and add it to your current list that you're working on. So I'm gonna make here a quick list. I'm gonna put these values here. Where's my thing? Okay, so I got here, I'm gonna have a space here, an I and an S in my little list. So I'm gonna extend it. And if I hit word, now it's who space is, right? Remember, your variable is here, the dot notation, right, the little dot, and then the method you're gonna use. And all that is applied to that variable at the beginning, okay? And since this word is a list, which we define it to be so up here, then these methods would apply to, would be able to be executed on your list, okay? Perfect, hopefully that makes sense. Cool. We can also insert. So we're gonna insert, oops, I need a dot, not a comma. Insert, and we're gonna insert, and the first argument I'm gonna put here is a location in our array. So 0, 1, 2, 3 here, right before our space with a comma. And what are we gonna put into that space right before number 3? What are we gonna put there? I'm gonna put a question mark. How about that? Let's see what we have here. So I put a question mark, who, right? You notice that? It will put it, if at position 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, it will put it right in front. And there you go. Okay, easy peasy, right? That's our list. Now, this is, as you might remember from the book, we had a script called Panic. And let me just, well, I'm not gonna run it now, but the Panic one, they wanted you to kind of solve it using these type of manipulations. And the solution was pretty complex. And I get it, it was more of a teaching point. One that always gives me trouble to remember, and maybe it happened to you or to understand, is when you're using a method, right? And then you're using inside of it another method. And I don't know if you noticed that in the examples in the book, you have to kind of think a little bit to get around it, right? And you can have, like in the example, 2 methods here. I only have one here just for the example. If you have 2 methods, it's gonna go from the inside, it's gonna go from the inside, left to right, and then comes to the outside, again, left to right. In this case, what are we doing here? Well, we have an extend, but before we do the extend, we gotta go to the inside and do this pop 3 on word, okay? So what are we gonna do? Pop 3, so let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna take the question mark and pop it out. But that question mark, we're gonna then extend it, which means it's gonna be put where? Hopefully at the end. So let's try it out. All right, did that make sense? So again, I have to do an extend, but before I do the extend, I go inside, pop the value, kind of take it out like that. So I have it now, the question mark is out. And then I apply the extend on that question mark. And then extend by definition is gonna put it at the end. So it goes at the end, okay? I'm not reading chat, but hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, all right.
We have a question from the chat. Would
Sure,
append have had the same effect?
Append?
Yeah.
Yes. The difference is here, since I'm using extend, notice how I put this between brackets as a list, because extend does a list. Actually, let's do it. Why not? Word. Let's just pop the last one again. So make sure it's not there. Now let's do word. That's a great question. Love it. Append. But instead of, oh, but I need to put the, hold on. I need to put the question mark where it needs to be, right? So we're gonna insert it on 3. Excellent question. Let me make sure it's correct. Perfect. So now word dot, instead of extend, we're gonna use append. But instead of using, we're gonna use word. Let's see what happens. Word, and we're gonna use pop 3, right? And notice I'm not defining it here inside as a list, right? So let's see what happens. All right, so did everybody notice a little bit of a difference, right? Extend, you're adding a list at the end of your list. That kind of, I would say kind of, not merging, that's the word, but kind of like, again, like kind of extending it, those two lists together. Whereas append, you're adding values to your list. That's why extend has the brackets indicating that a list is inside of it. Whereas append doesn't have that bracket, it's just the value. Whatever you took out, you popped out, which is a question mark, that value will be appended to the end of the list. For our purposes, it looks the same, but depending on the data you're working on, if you're working with lists, you might use extend. If you're working just plain values, you will use append. Does that answer the question, hopefully? All right, I'm gonna assume so. Sorry, so let's say, now let's do some of our control flow structures here. So let's check if question mark is in Word, I wanna do something. If it's there, I wanna print, right? Question mark, oops, is here. And again, this is just a quick example of, and again, it went in our Word list, found the question mark and told me, yes, it's here because this conditional is true, right? And we also learned in this class that, actually before we do that, let's pop it. This word pop, I think is the last one, right? Oops, wrong variable name, not declared or not defined. There we go. So we also learned that if question mark and we added is not, it's not in, right? Not in, not is. If not in, oops, I can't type today. Not in, there we go. Word. Okay, and they're gonna print here question mark not in. That's easy enough. Well, not it, but it's supposed to be in. Does that make sense? So you can also do negatives. You got a conditional here. If it's here, do it. If it's not, don't do it. Okay, perfect.
Another question.
Sure, go ahead.
In what context would this be useful?
Oh, that's perfect. Great. I'm gonna give you a heads up what we're doing next after I'm done with a couple more commands. I'm gonna take a file from an Android phone called build.prop, okay? And we're gonna open it and look for interesting things. And if we find what we want, we're gonna open that file with Python. I'll show you that. Then we're gonna go and take a piece of data and using some of these commands that we're gonna discuss, pull out only the stuff that we want. Because again, for forensics, you might have a file that has whatever, a terabyte of, not a terabyte, right? But let's say 10 megabytes of data, but you only want a few things. So we're gonna just pull out a few things and then I'll give you as a homework. It's not mandatory because I'm extending the content, but how can we put those values into a file? And I'll have you do some research on how can I write to a file. But we'll talk about that later. So I'll give you some examples of how to do, how can you use this? So I will, just bear with me. All right. I got a couple more minutes so I can go into the good stuff. All right, so important. if you take word, I'm sorry, if you take, let's see here, let's take a variable called word2, right? And I'm gonna assign it, this variable, I'm gonna assign the list word, right? If you print out word, it's a list, and you print out, as I sent to the screen, word2 is also a list, right? The point to remember here is that even though you may think that, okay, I made a copy of word, you actually didn't make a copy because both items are actually referencing the same object internally. So if I pop the last item of that list, which is S, and I write word, you're expecting not to be there, but if you write word2, pull out what is in it, it will not be there also. And this is might not be what we want, right? Using the assignment operator, these two variables, these two lists are sharing the same object behind the scenes. And that might not be what you want. So what you might want, and let me just put back the value here. I typed enter by accident. What you might want to do here is, again, I can't type. I will leave it like that. That's fine. It don't really matter. So what you want to do is use copy. So let's use now word3, another variable. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our original list and copy it using the copy method over. Okay, so word is as we expect. Word3 is a copy as we expect. So if I go and pop the last item of that word list, it takes it out. We see what's inside of it. The I is gone. But if you go word3, the I still remains. So keep that in mind, right? The assignment operator, we usually think of it as just moving stuff from one side to the next. Like, hey, here's a copy of it. But it's actually, it's an assignment of a reference to an object. If you want to actually copy something, use the copy method. So just keep that in mind, okay? And the last new skill that we learned in these, at least that we're going to cover for today, are notations in regards to lists. So if I use word and I use the notation, right, to get to the value, to show me what's on 0, what we'd expect to see here on the list, the position 0, it's a W. So let's confirm. It's a W. If I look for position 1, it's pretty obvious it should be an H. The interesting thing about that Python has is that you can also do it in negatives. And this is really convenient. I use it all the time. Oop, not who is word. If I put a -1 here, what it will give me is the last item of that list. Since we're using word, is the space. If we were using word3 and we put that negative addressing location, we should get an I. So it would be -1 here on the I, -2, -3, -4, -5. And this is pretty neat because sometimes you need to specifically address or deal with the end of a list. Use the negative. You don't have to calculate how long the list is to figure out where the ending is, right? Well, the list has 100, items in it. All right, then if it's 100, I want to, access item 100 or 99 since we start from 0. You don't have to worry about that. Just use those negatives and you'll get to it, okay? And last but not least, the start, stop, step way of dealing with lists, right? So let's say I use word. I want to start at the position 0 at the beginning of it. I want it to show me, let me see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of short. Let's, so in that case, let's use word3. Bear with me. I'm going to use the word3 list. And I want to do, which one would be good? Yeah, this one, word3. And I want to show stop at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, F4. And I want to do it 2 by 2s. What will we get? So what happened here? We're going to start at position 0. So at beginning here, word3. And I want to stop at position 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to stop at the I. And I want to pull out or show items 2 by 2. So if I start at the beginning here, we got these 2 items. So the first one is W. And then we got the next 2 items. The first one is O. So it shows O. And then we only have 1 item. We don't have another item. So we cannot show it 2 by 2. So that's why you don't get an I here. Does that make sense? If I have a longer list, I could do it, every three characters, every 5 characters, every 6 characters, depending on what it is. But this start, stop, and by how much is really, really useful. And I'm gonna show it to you right now. So we got 10 minutes, and this is the part I really wanted to show you. All right, so let me move this a little bit to the side here. So I'm using Josh Hicksman's Pixel 3 image. And this is my tool has my A-Leap tool already gone through it, but ignore all the stuff on the top. I want to show you this temp folder. This temp folder is kind of like the data I pulled out from the image that Josh made. And you can do this yourself. You can go and open that zip file and navigate to the directory that you want the data to work out of, or work with, I should say. If you go to the vendor folder, you'll find a file called build.prop. So let's take that file. And again, this is from an Android phone. So I'm just gonna put it on the desktop here, and let's open it up with our editor, like not the IDLE, but another one. Notice here there's a lot of different information. You have, for example, here kind of like a key, equal sign, and then a value. So by doing this is the part you do your own research, right, to figure out, okay, is there anything interesting here? Look at this one, for example. Product vendor model. Oh, look, equals Pixel 3. Interesting. Product vendor manufacturer equals Google. And there's more stuff here, right? But for this example, I want to say, okay, for my own purposes, I want to pick these 2 values out. Why? Let's say I have 20 phones. If I've had access to the build.prop, when I do my script, I will be able to determine that image of that phone is from a Google phone, and specifically a Pixel 3. It might be a Samsung, it might be LG, it might be whatever, but that data will be in here, right? So instead of us having to pull this file out and looking at it visually every single time, and again, assuming this is in the same order, this could be who knows where inside this file, we're gonna do a script that will pull out from this file this information. So whenever we have a image I wanna work with, run it, and you know what the manufacturer and the model is. So how do we do that?
Sorry, quick question. Can you just
Sure.
back up for people who are just not familiar with A-Leap? So did you run that through A-Leap and then you got that information?
Yeah, I just run it through A-Leap because I have an artifact for it, and I run it, and the image file is a zip file, so it pulls out this file for me. So that's why I mentioned my tool. Maybe I shouldn't. The point of this part is you have a file that's of interest to you. It could be from a forensic image. It could be from a return from Google. Whatever the source data is, you will have that source data, right? And you open it and you research it and you figure out there's data that you want to get out every single time you come across this file. So we're gonna automate it with Python. Does that make sense, Brooke?
Yeah, that does. And also, like Heather mentioned, yeah, you should mention it. Like this was also, I think, really his tools are really, helpful. And anyway, continue.
No, and as we go along, we'll
right. Free advertising.
Yeah, no, as we go along, I'll get to more of those tools, because at least the tool that I made, what it does is I already find certain artifacts that I care about, like this build.prop, and it pulls it out for me. I don't have to go and open the zip file and navigate. It's it's easy as run the tool, and I know it's in the temp folder, and here it is. Anyways, all right. So going back to the thing, so we're gonna pull this out. So how are we gonna do it? So let's open our editor again. I don't want this one though. I want a new one. All right, and I'm gonna call this. Let's call it. Well, let me start writing before I call it anything. All right, so this part we have not covered it, and don't sweat it. All right. We're gonna get to it. All right. So don't sweat this part. With open, and this is a functionality that comes with Python. How you open a file. All right. Build.prop. So the name of the file. We're gonna open that file. We're gonna open it as read only. Okay. So we open this file as file. This is the file handler. And again, don't worry if you don't, what is Alex doing? It's fine. We'll get to it down the road. I'm just putting this code here because it's the code that we need to open the file for Python to be able to go through the contents. Now, this is the part that you do know. For line, so we decide of a variable named line, which is descriptive, in file. So for whatever we pulled out from that file, here, the build.prop. I'm gonna, oh, I didn't write it wrong. I didn't write it right. Build, there we go. I'm going to do certain operations, okay? The first one we're gonna do is if, right? And since we're going line by line reading this file due to the loop, we're gonna take the first line, for example, where's the thing? Let's say we're going down by a line, and look, this line. I'm gonna see if product, vendor, manufacturer, heck, and even the question mark, why not? I wanna see if this is on my line, all right? So if, as the script is going, if this, right, is in the line that I'm reading, what am I gonna do? I wanna print, right? And I'm gonna use an F string, which we discussed in previous classes. Android model is, and then I'm gonna use the curly brackets. And I wanna take the line that I'm working with, and on position, I'm gonna start at position 24, and I wanna go all the way to the end of that list. Bear with me, I know it's kind of confusing, but we'll get there, bear with me, okay? Let's save this as, on our desktop, we're gonna save it as, let's call it build script. Why not, .py. All right, well, they have to wait. How do I hang this up? There we go. All right, so let's run it and see what happens.
At 24 though, Briggs, is that because you already know where, kind of, if you count out the RO product vendor, that's where you got that 24?
That's correct. That's correct. And again, I'm trying to give you an example of how this works, like in practicality. Will I use it this way and counting that? No, but I'll show you. I'm kind of running out of time, but maybe for next class I'll show you a more efficient way of doing it. But we'll get there. So yeah, so let's run it. Yeah, I want to save it. Yes. Ah, look at this. It's interesting, right? I counted 24, but I should have used model, not manufacturer. So I used the wrong string. And see how it just started from position 24, which is actuator, right? If I had used actually model instead of manufacturer, let's do that again. There we go. And actually this error is good. I like this error. No, it's not an error. It's not an error. Let me rephrase this. I like that my logic was wrong because it didn't give me an error. The interpreter went and gave me what I asked for. So there was no error on part of the interpreter or my syntax. It's my logic. Here, inadvertently, instead of using model, I used the word manufacturer, right? So it gave me actuator. And you may ask yourself, where is this coming from? This actuator. Well, what I'm doing is the line that we're reading, does it have this value or this, no, not value, let me rephrase that. Does it have this, the string? It has it. Cool, then go from line 24, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you count all the way to the end, the question mark is 24, right? So give me whatever is all the way to the end. And it gives me pixel, okay? Now what we're gonna do is, because for the sake of time, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna now copy and paste. So we're gonna use elif. And instead of model, we're gonna use now manufacturer. And I'm gonna cheat here, it's 31. I know it's 31 characters long, all the way to the end, okay? And then Android, Angular period, manufacturer, whatever, that's fine. Save it, let's run it, see what happens. So Android manufacturer is Google, Android model is Pixel. So every time I run this little script and point it towards this file, I will know what the model and manufacturer is. It might be Google, it might be Pixel, it might be Samsung, it might be whatever it is. And that'll be part of my reporting because this is the forensics I'm doing. Notice how these two outputs are there's a space in between. Why is there a space in between? I don't remember putting like another print down here to give it another space or anything. Like, what's going on? Right, so let's go and print here. I'm gonna, inside of here, I'm gonna do a print before we do our F string. So I wanna print that line as a list so I can show you something interesting. Right, so I'm going here, I'm doing the model thing, and look, if you look here at the list that it gives us, At the end of pixel 3, what is this? Does anybody know what this is? You all know what it is. It's a new line indicator, right? So that new line indicator is gonna, you know, is gonna show up on your on your output when you do it that way, right? So what would be a way of taking that new line indicator there to take it out? I think it's pretty obvious where we're going, right? There's two ways we can do that, right? We can do a pop, and if we do a pop, it takes it out and it changes that list. Or if we don't want to change the list, what we could do is, okay, give me all the way, instead of to the end, I want to stop at -1. You see what I'm doing there? Let's run it and see what happens. Well, I did it wrong. Let me hurry here. At -2, is it? Let me see. Google goes first. Yeah, that's why. I'm sorry. Let me go here. 1, and here also -1. There we go. And run it. There we go. All right. And you might wonder, why didn't it work the first go around? My first one is model, sure, and my second elif is manufacturer, but inside the actual data source, manufacturer goes first and model goes afterwards. So here it took it out, but it's not obvious to you, right? There's no space here, but it's not obvious because we still have this space here, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But this is the point, right? What I'm doing is, okay, give me from 24, which is where this, from 24 where the equal sign here, and 31 where the equal sign is here, and go all the way to the end except the last one. And this is interesting because now you can limit or take that part out without changing your list or without changing your string. And you got to be careful there. In most, and I don't use pops and removes and stuff like that, barely in forensics. And the book will not tell you this. I want to, even when I'm parsing my data, I want to alter that data the least I can. I might want to show it to you, like limit what I'm showing to you, right? In this case, I'm only showing you these 2 keys and values. I'm not showing you the whole thing. True, right? But as a matter of practice, I don't like to do things that are kind of eliminating stuff from the data I'm working with, because you might need it. Or the fact that's there, like here, oh, look, there's an, as I'm working through it, I figured out there's an extra space there. Okay, and that might be important for me to have or know down the road. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. If it makes sense, give me a 1. And Brooke, can you tell me if we have 1s or not?
Yep, there's a bunch of 1s. And I also have a question before you. Yep, only 1s. Yay. Oh, -1.
All the way to the end.
Hard. Yeah, so just a question, and I'm sorry if you already touched on this, I missed it, but just to back up a bit, do you usually put all of your scripts and stuff on, for people who just don't know, do you usually put all your scripts and sort of base your work off of your desktop when you're running these things?
No. At least on Macs I don't, because Macs like to put everything on the desktop to the cloud by default. I did it here, and I'll explain why I did it here in a second. But I don't put a Mac on because it goes to the cloud. And when I code, I'm dealing with a lot of data that I'm kind of moving and copying. And when I'm making reports, and it slows it down because it's trying to also, as I'm working, trying to push up. So I have a folder in my in documents. Documents is it? Yeah, where it's placed. It's placed. So it doesn't push it to the cloud. And you might ask yourself, was that Alex? I mean, you do backups constantly? Well, I use GitHub. So I use GitHub desktop, and we'll get to that down the road. So pretty much I'm always interacting with my Git, right? So I pull the data from the Git, I work with it. When I'm happy with it, I do a pull request, and I send it up to the Git when I'm ready. When I'm ready, all the changes are as I want to, then I push them up. And that's how I do my development. I don't put it on the desktop. Now the question is, why would you put it on the desktop then? Well, it's easy for this example to put the file that I'm gonna work with and my script in the desktop, because since they both share the same directory, when I open, I don't have to tell the script where to go get it. Like, okay, it's on this path, on volume, users, desktop, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to. The same thing with Windows. If both the file that you're gonna look at and your script are on the same directory, you can just call it by the name, because it's gonna look by default into the directory the script is running. And there's rules on how scripts look for things and how Windows looks for things in the directory and the path and all that. But for y'all's knowledge, for the time being, as we're doing this, we're gonna be working from the script and the data in the same location. Later, we're gonna start adding here, like, you know, oops, I didn't wanna do that. I wanted to, now everybody's gonna show up on this recording. Let me see if I can hide it. All right. Yeah, so I can go here and just, you know, put the path or whatever it is, path, whatever it is. So we'll get to that, but that's why I did it. Hopefully that answered the question.
I don't see your screen. I don't think I see the screen share if that's what you're trying to do.
Oh, it's not sharing anymore?
No.
Okay.
The beach.
I don't know what I did. That's weird.
Oh,
there we go. Now we're
there
back?
we go. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so up here, still recording hopefully? Yeah. So up here, you know, we're gonna learn how to do the pathing and all that stuff down the road. But if your script and your data, they're in the same directory, you can just call that data directly right here. Yeah, just open this file, boom, done. All right. We're out of time. I mean, if I want to show you another way of doing it, but I'm thinking maybe it's good to let people go because there's other events coming right after. Unless, Brooke, what do you think? We should leave the rest for next class?
I don't know. What's coming on after? I guess, does anyone need to go, or do you see what the class is? Type in the chat if you need to bounce or if you want to.
Yeah. If you need to leave, put a 1.
I didn't hear the bell. Good point.
Say what?
Somebody said I didn't hear the bell. Does 1 mean stay? I think 1 means stay, 0 means go.
Yeah, 1 means stay. Yeah, if you want to stay, it'll be like 4 more minutes. If you want to stay, give me a 1.
I guess what is okay. There's a lot of 1s. I mean, that's good. I'm happy to stay, and yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure that we.
There's an I beg to DFIR at 1, which I would like to go to, but that's not for another 23 minutes. Heather posted the link and.
Okay, no, but we're gonna be done way before that.
Later for this. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's true. She told me. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Okay, then we're gonna continue. And again, we're almost done. I mean, just take a few more minutes. The point of this, what I'm showing you, is that look, we open a real file from a forensic extraction, and we pulled out the model and the manufacturer from that phone from this file. Right? This is forensics, right? You're pulling data. What I would like you to do is, and I'll repeat it at the end. Do more elifs, like more conditionals, and go through that list, that file, and pull out more things that might be of interest. Pull out more things. I'm gonna put in the Discord later on today, like in a couple of, not even a couple of hours, in an hour or so, I'm gonna put a link to a Google Drive where you can pull the build.prop file, so it's easy for you. Or you can download Josh Hicksman's Pixel 3 image, forensic image, test image, and find it yourself. But I'll put it on the Discord so you can get it. Now, this script is really conditional of me knowing how long my list is, right? Like, oh, it's 24 spaces, it's 30, not spaces, 24 characters or whatever it is, or 31 characters. That's quite, you have to be counting every single time. So another way of doing it that I want to show you is I'm gonna show you a cool method that we can use on our line that we're analyzing, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna name a variable called splits, and we're gonna take a line and use a method called split. And what does that method do? That method will take a character, the first character that you indicate, in this case, it's gonna be the equal sign, and it's gonna split that long string, and it's gonna make a list, right? What's on the left of that equal sign is gonna be position 0 or index 0 in my list, and then what's to the right of that question mark is gonna be position 1 or index 1 on my list. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna hide this or comment it, and if you see what I'm doing here, I'm adding 3 single quotation marks. What does that mean? The code is still here, but the interpreter will not execute it. This is called commenting a block. None of this, the interpreter is gonna ignore it. It's like it doesn't exist. If you don't wanna comment a whole block, you can comment even a line, right? If I put this hashtags or pound sign for people that are old like me, and you can put this is a comment. And this is not gonna show on your script. It's not gonna confuse it. It's just a comment. It's not gonna be any problems, okay? All right. So for sake of the example, so we're gonna split this, and I'm gonna Yeah, let's do it this way. Let's do, let's use the same conditional. I'm gonna give this some space because why not? All right. So if this is in line, I wanna show you what's in splits. Let's just put splits the whole way. But I used to use print first. There we go. Let's save it. Let's show it. All right. Notice here on my interpreter on the left. So what to the left of the question of the equal sign, we have our product vendor model, and to the right we have pixel 3 with our what? With our new line carrier here. Notice how we did that. The equal sign is not part of the list because that's what we're using to split it. Okay, let's give you an example. So in this case, I can always say, okay, then let's do an F string here. And I want the Android model is, and instead of having to count whatever it is I need to count, I'm just gonna put split.
You put mode.
model. Thank you. Is splits, and we're gonna use position 1. And then close our brackets there, right? Let's save it and let's run it. Oh, I did wrong combination of things. There we go, on function F5. I did not put the, of course, it's a string, so I need to put here to enclose the string. All right, let's do it again. Again, this will happen. You will make these little mistakes here, so that's why I like you to so here it is. Under model is pixel 3. Notice that the is too close to it. Let me just give it some space here. There we go. Save it and run it. So why did I didn't want to show you this? Because now I can you know, I don't have to count how much I want. I know based on me looking at the file that all these files, what they have in common, what they all have in common is this equal sign here, right? That separates our key from our value, all right? Therefore, I can use splits to take advantage of that. Instead of having to count, you know, I can just use that to my advantage. Let's copy this. And this is the end of it. So if we find this in line, I can actually just take the same code here. Why not? And instead of model, let's just put manufacturer. Whatever. And then let's rip. Let it rip. You all saw that? So at this point, I'm not worrying about counting, you know, anything. I can just go and just, you know, just use the splits functionality to get that. So what have we learned? We learned quite a lot in this half chapter, right? We learned how to manipulate lists. We learned the start, stop, how that works. I showed you an example of opening an actual file from a forensic extraction, opening it, start reading it by line, and only pulling out what you need. And if you think about it, forensics is nothing else, honestly, than taking data in one format and put it in another. And specifically a format that normal human beings can understand, that it makes sense to people, okay? And you as the examiner, you're the person that knows what's happening behind the scenes. Your task, I say clients, but the one I'm looking for is the people that you're serving, right? They will read here and say, Android manufacturer is Google. That's clear. Android model is Pixel 3. That's clear. But behind the scenes, you as the examiner, you know that this is a reverse URL key. And it's true. It signifies model. It's true. It signifies manufacturer. But you know internally where it's at, why is it there? And you're also aware of what other data might not be there, right? When you do your research and you investigate all these things here. So I'm not gonna say homework. This is optional. What I would like you to do is see if you can do other, add more here, either by using the line, start, stop functionality here, but it's start, stop, step functionality, or use the splits and the list functionality. And then do research and see how can I take this output that's on the screen and how do I send it to a file? And I'm gonna give you a quick a quick heads up. You need to open a new file, and then you need to write to it. And again, don't worry if you don't get it, because I haven't taught it. This is kind of like for people that are a little bit more advanced, you want to reach out and kind of do a little bit more, you can do that. If you haven't, don't sweat it. I'm gonna explain it, next class. How do we gonna write this down to a file?
Could you put this optional assignment? Could you just explain it in the Discord chat?
I will.
Like,
I will.
I'm gonna try my best to do it. No promises I'll succeed, but
Oh no. And the answer is Googling. Honestly, what the skill you're learning here right now, to be honest, is Googling. I want you to Google how to write a file in Python, and I believe, based on the 4 classes that we had, that you have enough knowledge to understand what the results will be. I believe so. And if you don't, that's okay. That means that I need to do better and we'll do better. Ask questions in Discord. I will put the assignment. I will put the file, a link to the file, the build.prop file. And that's all I got for today. I'm gonna stop the recording. Where's the thing?